Welcome back. Today we are continuing our reading through the first book of Enoch series with episode 3, where we are covering chapters 6 and 7. These two chapters have a lot of the juicy stuff in them about the sins of the watchers. So let's start off with the overview. Chapter 6 tells the same story as the beginning of Genesis 6 about angels lusting after earthly women and what that led to, except Enoch 1's version starts naming the names of these fallen entities. And there are apparently, according to this account, quite a few of them. 200 to be exact, it says. It doesn't name all 200 of them, but it names the leaders over them, which implies a hierarchy system they operate under. It also interestingly implicates that these entities had full knowledge that what they were about to do would be a great sin, and they knew for a fact they were going to suffer judgment and swore oaths and bound each other by mutual imprecations in a very Freemasonry type of way, it sounds, because the definition of imprecation, if you don't know, means a curse. These are the types of things that are the hallmark of all secret societies, secret brotherhoods, secret sisterhoods, witch covens, and the like. They make blood, ceremonial, or ritualistic oaths and speak curses over themselves or others during the oath in the event one does not fulfill the stipulations of that oath. Understanding and recognizing that pattern in these societies makes you start to think about why that would be there and where these practices originated from, doesn't it? Moving on. Chapter 6 also mentions that these fallen angels descended on the summit of Mount Hermon in the days of Jared, which is Enoch's father, which means Jared is Noah's great-great-grandfather. I may even make a separate video here on this channel about Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah soon, because there are some interesting things about the life and times of these individuals. Chapter 6 tells how the fallen angels defile themselves with the daughters of man and produce giants who then proceed to consume all the acquisitions of men, and when men can no longer provide for them, the giants begin to eat the humans. This is a highly interesting point it makes next in verse 5, where it says they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. I find that to be an interesting quote because to me it would seem to account for dinosaurs and blurry creatures like Bigfoot being a result of these unspecified sins against other members of the animal kingdom. I'm sure it means they devoured, as in ate humans and animals alike, but I don't rule out the possibility of genetic manipulation as part of these sins. But that is just my speculation. The verse in Genesis 6 verse 9 about Noah being perfect in his generations could reference that his genetic line was pure and untampered or had not been mingled with by the watchers, which would offer a slightly different take on why the flood was even necessary. Perhaps it was not simply because the earth was full of sinful people. We have that now. But it could be because the watchers mingled themselves genetically in such a way as to pollute the human race with modifications where the prophecy about a Savior to be born would be thwarted and could not come to pass because the people were mixed and no longer fully human. Let's begin. Chapter 6. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born to them beautiful and attractive daughters. And the messengers, the children of the heavens, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose wives for ourselves from among the children of men, and beget children for ourselves. And Semjaza, who was their leader, said to them, Indeed, I fear you will not agree to do this deed, and I alone will have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then they all swore together, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations on it. And they were 200 in all who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations on it. And these are the names of their leaders. Their leaders Semjaza, and Arakalba, Ramil, Kokabelel, Tamlel, Ramlel, Daniel, Ezekiel, Barakajal, Asael, Armaros, Bataril, Ananel, Zachiel, Samsapil, Sadarel, Turel, Jomjael, and Seriel. These are their chiefs of tens. Chapter 7. And all the others took wives to themselves together with them, and each chose one for himself. And they began to go into them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bore great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. Next, in episode 4, we will be covering chapters 8 and 9. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.